Welcome to Hallo Hallo Espesyal with Jasmine, Angelo, and Craig.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine Gunn. I am from Australia. I've been lucky enough to have travelled the world. My mother is from the Philippines and my father is Australian. I have spent most of my time in both cultures, so I'm here today to share some of my experiences with you all. And Angelo?
Thanks, Jess. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Hallo Hallo Espesyal podcast. My name is Angelo. I'm Belgian Filipino. I was born in Cebu, but I was adopted at a young age by two beautiful human beings. I'm a huge advocate against racism, and I play professional football for United FC in the Philippines. That's me.
I'm Craig. I am truly Hallo Hallo, as in I grew up growing in different countries. I lived for a long time in Australia, Hong Kong, Canada, a total of 26 countries. But more than half my life has been in the Philippines.
Wow.
I love the Philippines.
You're a man of many time zones.
I am, yes. How about we start by talking about our biggest cultural mistakes? I have so many, I'm not sure which one to talk about, but I remember one time when I was not that long in the Philippines, I needed to buy some medicine. I was at a drug shop, I'm not going to name which one. And I was at the desk and people were coming and going, getting served. And suddenly, it's like time was passing and none of the sales assistants were giving me any attention. So finally, after almost an hour, I said, "Tao po, andito ko." And one of the girls looked at me, "Ay, sir, we didn't know you could speak Filipino. We thought you were going to give us a nosebleed. So that's why we've all been so shy." And I realized it was my mistake because I'm just assuming, okay, they'll serve me eventually. But because they were not sure they would understand what I said. We all make different cultural mistakes. What about you, Jasmine? Do you have any stories?
I can kind of relate. I did model for a few years in the Philippines and I was catching taxis everywhere and they started talking to me fluently in Tagalog. And unbeknown to them, they didn't realize that I was from Australia. Of course, I kind of look a little bit Filipino. So if anything, I took that experience to learn the language and learn more about the culture. I actually enjoyed learning the language. Angelo?
Really embarrassed to tell my story. It was about 2011 when I first went to the Philippines for a training camp with the national team. And the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao, had a fight. And if I remember correctly, it was Nate Berkey that asked me, "Hey, do you want to go watch the fight? Pacquiao's fighting." And I was like, who's Pacquiao? He's like the boxer, Manny Pacquiao. And I was like, oh yeah, Manny Pacquiao, right? But deep down, I had no idea who he was talking about, So for me, as being a Filipino, not knowing who Manny Pacquiao is that's definitely my lowest point.
He's actually a really down-to-earth human. I was lucky enough to sit next to him during the LA Galaxy game when LA Galaxy played against the Azcals, and he is so down-to-earth and such a humble human being. So
yeah, I can imagine.
Really cool.
I don't know if you've seen his movie. Has anybody seen his movie? It's on Netflix.
Yes.
It's amazing. If you would see where he came from and where he is now, it's very inspiring.
So what do you think the Philippine culture can teach us?
For me personally, I love the nature here. The nature. If you're in Belgium, then there's not really a lot there. It's kind of boring, to be honest. But the Philippines, if you want to go to the beach, you have so many options. I was just talking to Greg about Davao. You have so many beautiful beaches there. Then you have Palawan, Boracay. You have so many options to go hiking to. There's so many mountains, volcanoes to visit. So for me, definitely nature is a recommendation for the people out there. What about for you, Greg? Do you have any?
Well, first of all, Angelo, I'm going to have to disagree with you. because on my bucket list, I really want to visit Belgium. Because there is a famous chapel there in Ghent that's got some amazing artwork. And so for me, I'm looking forward to visiting Belgium. But as for what the Philippines can teach the world, wow, Bayanihan spirit. I mean, it doesn't really translate as community spirit. It's so much deeper than that. But I remember one time a doctor told me that I needed to take time off for my health. And somebody suggested that I go and live on an island just on the beach. It was a lovely island, no running water. Everybody shared a well and no electricity. On my first day there, I heard somebody shout. And then I suddenly realized everybody was running in one direction of a guy with a boat who had just landed. And they all picked up the boat and they lifted the boat and carried it to the top of the beach. And I realized that I would have been expected to have helped, because by Yanahan spirit, we should all be helping one another. And so after that, I made sure I was always the first person when I heard the shout to get to the boat to help them lift it out of the water. What about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, that's the Philippine culture. I think they say blood's thicker than water, but not necessarily with the Philippine culture. You can have a friend or an acquaintance, someone you've just met, and they feel like family. And that's the thing that I love. I think that as a group, we were trying to hunt something down like a balut egg. And I had a few friends, they were like on their phones. They were messaging people. They were trying to track an egg down for me from the other side of the world. I'm in Australia right now, and I had friends in the Philippines, in Manila, trying to hunt this egg down. And it was done within minutes, or they were trying overnight. And that kind of spirit of family, it's one of the most warming and fulfilling feelings in the world. Living and traveling from the Western world and back to the Philippines, I haven't taken anything for granted. If anything, I've learned a lot. A smile can go a long way. So I try to smile every day and spread the positivity around. And that's the Philippine culture.
Well, for me, it follows up a little bit to what you said, Jazz. For me, the island life of the Philippines, you know, when you're from Belgium, everything revolves about time, everything revolves about money. But when you come to the Philippines, it's like life slows down a little bit, especially if you go to the islands. So I think if you go to the Philippines, you can definitely learn from that, to sometimes take a step back and not learn that not everything revolves about money, not everything revolves about business. Sometimes you need to take a step back and just relax. And that's what Filipinos are really good at.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And speaking of that relaxed lifestyle, I've actually got a list. I've got a list of 5 things I love about the Philippine culture. I'm going to share that with you guys and everyone that's watching or listening. Have you guys got your list as well?
I don't have my list with me. My problem was I just couldn't come up with 5, but I believe you'll have it to put up on the screen.
That's
all right. I think I ended up with 20 or something.
I know. So I'll start with mine. I think we might have some similar things, but let's see how we go. So with the Philippine culture, I love, Angelo, you mentioned this already, the islands, and just having so many beautiful places and surroundings. So there's 7,000 islands and islets that make up the Philippines. And I've never been to a country where you can island hop and have a whole island to yourself, an untouched island. So that experience for me, just traveling around island hopping and just living a really simple life in a tropical environment, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. And that's why I love going back to the Philippines. I've got friends from Australia that actually love the Philippines because I put together little travel programs for them, and they haven't gone back just once. They've gone back numerous times to explore these islands. And I think you mentioned Boracay and Palawan. They're some of my favorites. I also love Bantayan, Malapascua. My mom's from Cebu, so I love Cebu. I could go on and on. Another thing I love about the culture is the celebrations. It's all a sense of community. You don't just have a small celebration in the Philippines. It's not just like 2, 3, 4 people. It usually ends up being a group of like 5 to 20 Do you guys agree?
Blowout.
It's a really cool feeling when like you're not just having a little celebration, everybody's coming to celebrate that birthday, that wedding, that special occasion. And it's it's a beautiful thing.
And to eat.
I know, yeah, that was the next thing on my list, the food. Where do I start?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, where do you start?
Oh my gosh, I just love, my mum cooks for a passion, and I live at home at the moment, and I'm so lucky and grateful that I'm exposed to the beautiful food. Pancit, adobo, the mango and sticky rice, the fresh buku juice. Oh my gosh, I could just go on and on and on. It's making me hungry.
You're making me hungry.
And then to top that off, one thing that I really love as well is a Samig Light. I'm not an alcoholic, but I do love my beer, and we don't have Samig Light in Australia. So if anybody out there can send some Samig Light over to me, I'll be very, very happy.
Address on the screen now.
Address is here. The friendliness, as we mentioned before, just the culture in itself. Everyone's got a smile on their face, even if they're going through tough times. I love that they've just got integrity and strength as a culture. So they're my top 5. I could go on as well.
One of the things I would add to your list is the resilience.
Yes.
People really are incredibly resilient. I mean, the Philippines suffers more natural disasters than any other nation. And yet, whatever the circumstances, people still smile. They're just incredibly resilient. They do not need much to make them happy. And they're always ready to share when you arrive in a new place. You're accepted, you're made to feel a friend straight away. Food obviously is a very big part of that. And you made me so hungry. I mean, I miss sinigang, I miss adobo, so many things. But hey, Angelo, have you tried balut?
I've tried it a few times, yeah.
What does it taste like?
It's like some parts are a little bit soft, and then some parts are a little bit bony. So you have that mixed match of, it's if you're not used to it, it's a little bit weird, but it's not that bad, and it's an aphrodisiac.
Oh, there you go, guys.
Yeah.
I love balut. It's one of the things traveling around, people would always challenge, well, you know, this white guy, how Filipino is he? So they would always ask me, do you want to eat balut? I always had to say yes. The first time, I must admit, I didn't enjoy it that much. But eventually I got a taste for it. So yeah, I've eaten it many times. But Jasmine, sometime we are going to have to make you eat some balut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen.
If I eat balut, you guys have to try some kangaroo or something.
Oh, definitely. We've got to do a challenge sometime, one of our podcasts.
Can I ask what the balut is?
There's penoy and there's balut. They're different stages of a fertilized duck egg. So penoy, it's just a little bit fertilized, but balut, you've actually got the chick inside. And people tend to think, oh, you eat the chicks? But then I remind people, you know, we eat eggs and we eat duck. So, you know, what's the difference? And it's one of those things that culturally people get hung up on, and it's all in the brain. It's not actually in our taste or anything else. It's just our brain that we get hung up on things. Yeah. But that's one of the things I learned traveling around the world growing up. I grew up with English parents, and I was taught to be independent. But then when I arrived in the Philippines, I learned a lesson that actually interdependence is far better than independence. And we do need everybody else in our lives. We need our friends, we need our bakada. And wow, there are so many things that we can learn from different cultures. Do you have any things on your list, Angelo, that you would like to add in?
Actually, yeah, I have a few things that I would like to share with you guys. One of the things that I learned here, being here in the Philippines, is to remember where I came from, to remember where you came from. I think it's important that people educate themselves about their history, about their language, about their ancestors, and that's something that I kind of neglected growing up. But I'm slowly catching up. Before you know it, Craig, you and me will have conversations in Tagalog for sure.
Yes.
Another thing is, yeah, you guys mentioned it already, to be open-minded. I think a lot of people are realizing that you cannot stay pinpointed in one location. You know, if you want to explore, open your mind, one of the things that you have to do is travel and get in touch with different cultures. That's definitely what helped for me. I was living in Belgium. I was just kind of stuck in a box, if you get what I mean. Then I started traveling, and there's a whole new world opening up for you, and you start asking yourself questions, you know, and that really helped.
But we need to be honest that there can also be a negative side, and there are some disadvantages to being mixed as well. Do any of you have any examples about that?
Yeah, I think I can totally relate. So growing up in Australia, I went to a school that was with predominantly Australians, so blonde hair, blue eyes, not all of them, but I was kind of, everybody saw my father, he's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and my mother is from the Philippines. So I kind of grew up in an environment where I was told every day, like, you're adopted. You know, I was really confused. I've come from a family where I've got half brothers and sisters. And I questioned my dad. I'm like, am I adopted? He's like, don't be silly. So growing up, I did experience a little bit of bullying, but then also on the bright side of things, being of a mixed ethnicity and background, I could pass as many different nationalities. So for my advantage when it comes to modeling and screen work, I can put myself, or I can get casted into different roles because I've got such a diverse look. Then on the flip side, you can also experience some racist remarks. They do hurt, but if anything, they've made me stronger. I've learned to not take that on board, not let that bullying or those racial comments and that negativity consume me. So if anything, I've taken that and turned into a stronger woman out of those situations. And if anything, I would love for our future generations to learn it's not okay to make those comments. We're all humans. We have to get along. It's not hard to be kind. I think it's easier to be kind. So, Angelo, how did you go in Belgium? How was it for you?
For me, growing up, it was particularly difficult because, as I mentioned in the introduction, I'm adopted. My parents are white, and my skin is brown. So you can imagine when you walk into a restaurant or anywhere where there's a lot of people, that sometimes people will look at you a little bit funny, you know. When I was young, I didn't always realize, but growing older, it would really catch on to me that people would talk about us. So that was hard. And I can also imagine for my parents that it was not easy. Then in school, I got bullied a lot. I got into a lot of fights. Even playing football, even the parents, they would say racist things to me while playing football. So it's all sad when you look back at it, but just like you, Jazz, I got stronger. How do you say it? I'm trying to inspire the younger generation that it's okay to be different, that it's okay if you have a different skin, it's okay if you practice a different religion. All those things, in the end, they don't matter. We're all the same. We're all humans. We're all in this together. And I think a lot of people should start realizing that.
Yeah, we're all together. One of the things that I found being white when I arrived in the Philippines, it was held up as a virtue, and I just couldn't understand why being white would be considered a virtue. It was like almost being put on a pedestal. And it's something that I really didn't like. I've made a number of attempts to stand up to that and to actually realize that you need to actually take a stand against racism. It's not enough just to give it lip service. You need to actually tackle it.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased that I've got some stories of where I have actually stood up to racism. But Jasmine, I'd like to ask you, when you arrived in the Philippines as a child, did anybody ever call you fat?
I think the Philippine culture, they're very honest. At a young age, I didn't totally understand the whole concept of the compliments and the structure of the compliments and the context. But I was, yeah, definitely called chubby or fat. So, I've always had chubby
And that is
cheeks.
a
I've always had
compliment.
chubby cheeks. But
Yeah.
even as a child, yeah. So in Australia, I guess I was like, my parents would be like, you're not eating enough. And then I go to the Philippines and everyone's like, oh, you're so chubby now. So I was like having these conflicting, in my head. It can kind of shock you sometimes. I guess I wasn't bullied, but it kind of did upset me sometimes. But again, I've become a strong person out of those situations. And as you said, it was a compliment. They were just complimenting me. So thank you for the compliment. I'm always going to have these chubby cheeks. And
That's good. That's good.
You, Angelo, did you experience anything like that?
I had most problems with the language because obviously I look Filipino, right? I look full-blooded Filipino, and people would address me in Tagalog, and I would always be kind of ashamed to say, sorry, I don't speak Tagalog. And then I would say, konti lang. But my girlfriend is Filipino, where I have to say asawa. She doesn't like it when I say girlfriend. But she's teaching me Filipino, so bit by bit, I'm removing that language barrier.
Yeah. And how diverse is the language in itself? So I love it that English is mandatory, Tagalog is mandatory, but then you've got all these different dialects, and I think we've got how many dialects? Yeah, the Spanish colonized the
Philippines. How many? Nobody, I think, really knows. I actually have a friend who realized when he was a teenager he wasn't going to be able to travel much internationally. And he chose to travel around the Philippines to learn all the major languages. And I used to travel with him, and he was fluent in everything. And that made traveling so much fun. So, have you got any experiences about how you've stood up against racism?
I actually started standing up against racism at a young age without even actually realizing it. My very first memory probably was in grade school, and I got bullied during playtime, and I started fighting, and the teacher took me to the side, and I confronted the teacher like, it's not okay that people are calling me names just because of my skin. And ever since then, I started realizing that it starts in schools. It starts with teachers, that they educate the kids that it's not okay to to call names, to bully people just because of their skin. So that's my very first memory. What about you, Greg? Because you mentioned that you fought racism as well, but you really tackled it. Can you go a bit deeper?
Well, I have to credit my friend Bob Gutierrez for coming up with an idea. It's when the Philippines were playing football in the Suzuki Cup, and overhearing in a restaurant in the Philippines a white Spanish-looking family talking about how tribal groups made them feel ashamed because they were dark-skinned and they were dirty. And Bob was really shocked. I was really shocked. And Bob decided to do something about it. And he decided to get permission from the Ifugao tribe to wear the bahag, or coat and tie, as we will refer to it. Just a waistcloth. And so Bob, I decided that we were going to, in Thailand at the Suzuki Cup, we would wear the bahag and stand for the tribal groups. And it became a news story in itself. And when we arrived back in the Philippines, actually, we had a lot of the Ifugao tribe come down to the next international match. And they actually led the cheering. They danced and they cheered on the Ascals, the national football team. And for me, that was just beautiful, an example of where we could do something positive to stand up against racism.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
That's amazing.
Whoa.
And have you got some photos of that experience that we can see?
I'm not sure they're safe to share, but yes, I have.
We're going to post those later.
Oh no. I thought this was going to be child friendly.
They're photos of showing unity and cultures coming together. Then why not? Let's share those experiences with the world. And I agree with you, Angelo. You did mention that it starts with schooling and the younger generation. I think that we do have to implement something in the education systems, not just nationally, globally, where children, the seeds planted early so they understand that it's not okay to be racist, and hey, it's good to come together as one. We're all human. Let's just be accepting, no matter what skin color we are, no matter what background we are, that we're all human at the end of the day.
So. Oh, yeah.
That was a beautiful message, Jazz. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm tearing up right now.
Respect, yeah, really.
And I'm by the way, I'm so grateful to have been asked to collaborate with you guys on this project. I've learned so much from both of you.
So we have to celebrate our differences. That's the great thing. And that's something about the Philippines. There are so many different cultures within the Philippines, so many different languages, so many different experiences, from the mountains of the Cordilleras to the beaches of Samar Island, Gardens Island in Davao. There's so much beauty there.
I'm proud to be half Filipina. So thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
And can you guys send me some, like, Angelo, can you send me some sticky rice and mango in an envelope? And
please, yeah.
right after this episode, it's coming your way. I got you.
Thank you. I'll send you.
Sinigang?
Yes, please.
Actually, my girlfriend is making sinigang later.
Oh.
That does it. I'm not talking to you anymore, Angelo. I'm sorry. And that's a wrap. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe below and join us next time for another dose of Halo Halo Espesyal.